Anybody that's got any questions on the legitimacy of the shots that I made, listen, if I was gonna lie, I would have made the hits look dead center. Howdy folks, Tex Grebner here with Tex Grebner Outdoors. We're going to be doing a little bit of urban bushcraft today. So basically taking modern materials and doing something along the lines of bushcrafting, where we're going to improvise and adapt something that's modern but use potentially primitive skills. I'm a big fan of shooting my recurves off the shelf. I'm not into the elevated rests. I'm a big fan of simplicity. Now, I like shooting instinctively, or intuitively would be a better way of saying it. I will gap shoot in competition, but if an animal is in front of you, you're going to be operating on lizard brain anyway. And the simplicity of just let the arrow go when it hits your anchor point appeals to me. And so I like shooting off the shelf. Now, I have shot a compound once I got back into them off a flipper rest, and you have to have a really long bow in order to be able to shoot fingers off a flipper rest, because the arrow will torque off the rest if the bow is too short. And I've also shot instinctively a little bit with a drop away, and I wasn't crazy about it. So I decided that I was going to figure out how, if possible, to actually make it possible for me to shoot my compound off the shelf super old school style. What I've done here is I've taken a piece of baler belting or gravel belting that's canvas and heavy duty rubber. I cut a split in it so that it would make a perfect 90-degree angle on the arrow shelf. In doing so, I brought the rest out and I built up the arrow shelf just a little bit. Then I put on a strike plate onto the riser, and I also put on the bear hair rests. I basically cut it in two and epoxied them down on there after I'd epoxied everything together. Now, the materials that I had, it was just luck that it actually tuned out pretty well. A little bit high, but still a pretty good group. Started out great. You've seen me shoot this thing without sights here at 15. Gonna do one at 50 just for the hell of it. As you can see, fence line here, 70 yards is as far as I can actually get. Now, this is not a new concept, okay? Shooting a compound without sights, not new. I'm not inventing this. The Fitzgeralds are famous for it. Tim Wells is famous for it. Ted Nugent is famous for it, okay? This is not something that I have coined. I admit it's a little bit of a novelty, and it's a bit to prove a point that all that fancy shit at the ATA show you don't really need. It's convenience. It can be done old school style. Granted, it seems at some point we lost track of as bow hunters that it became more extraction based, where, you know what, at some point you might as well just use a damn rifle. I have taken this up simply for the novelty of it and to be able to enjoy the compound bow that I actually own. Now, as I mentioned, not a huge fan of flipper rests. I have modified this to be able to shoot off the shelf, no stabilizer and fingers. Now, before we go any further and get into me attempting to make a decent hit at 70 yards here, I do want to cover the fact that this Martin Xenon is a 34 axle to axle. That is basically the shortest bow that you can successfully shoot fingers with without having pinching. Now, again, I am not recommending that you modify a bow like this. I just did it because I like to make shit weird. Another thing you want to be aware of is when you're setting your back wall with your draw stops, you want it directly on your anchor point. Not almost, not just too far, because you're going to end up with a shallow hook or a deep hook. You actually want it perfectly on your anchor point. My actual draw on this is set at 27 inches exactly. Now, these arrows, we're using the FMJ Vintage Camo Hunters 100 grain insert, 300 grain point, feathers, cresting wrap, making it weird, old school style. Incidentally, even though this is a compound bow, I bought these at Three Rivers Archery, or rather I bought the supplies at Three Rivers Archery. And the bare rest I got at Three Rivers Archery. Yeah, I know they're a sponsor of mine, but like I've said from the time that I got sponsored by them, I would be embarrassed to show you my receipts since I got into traditional archery. But I hope this video is helpful to you. I hope it's entertained you. As always, God bless all my sportsmen of America. Join the NRA to protect your rights. Please check out my friends over at threeriversarchery.com. Thank you very much to those of you involved in law enforcement, those of you serving in the military. Thanks for watching Tex Grebner Outdoors.